The first time I heard the emergency alert, I was driving home from my night shift at the hospital. The radio crackled with that familiar harsh tone, cutting through the pre-dawn silence. I expected another flash flood warning or amber alert. Instead, a robotic voice delivered 5 words that would haunt me forever.
Do not close your eyes under any circumstances. Repeat, do not close your eyes.
The message cut off abruptly. Static filled my car's speakers, then silence. I checked my phone, but I couldn't see any messages. Just another glitch in the system, I thought. Though something about those 5 words gave me a disconcerting feeling throughout my whole body. I pulled into my driveway as the sun began to peek over the horizon. My eyes burned with exhaustion after 12 hours in accident and emergency. As a nurse, I was used to fighting sleep deprivation, but today felt different. The weight of fatigue pressed against my skull like a vice. Inside, I found my roommate Sarah slumped over our kitchen table, her coffee gone cold. "Sarah?" I touched her shoulder gently. She jolted to attention with a gasp, her eyes wide and bloodshot. "John, thank God you're home." Her voice trembled. "Did you get the alert?" I nodded slowly. "On the radio, what's going on?" "It's everywhere now. TV, phones, internet." She showed me her screen. The same 5 words blazed across social media. Videos showed people in cities worldwide receiving the same message in different languages. Speculation ran wild. Government conspiracy, terror attack, mass hysteria. "Maybe it's just a hoax or an error. Things like this have happened before," I suggested. But Sarah shook her head. "People are disappearing, Jay. When they fall asleep." She swallowed hard. "They don't wake up." I wanted to dismiss it as paranoia, but the haunted look in Sarah's eyes stopped me. She pulled up a news report from Singapore, where the alert had first appeared 12 hours ago. Hospitals were overwhelmed with comatose patients. Their vital signs were normal, brain activity present, but nothing could wake them. "How long have you been awake?" I asked. "Too long." Sarah's hand shook as she clutched her coffee mug. "I can't. I won't sleep. Not after what happened to Mike." Mike was her boyfriend. They'd been texting when the alert started. He'd dismissed them, said he was going to take a nap. That was the last she heard from him. I felt the familiar pull of sleep tugging at my consciousness. My shift had ended, but I couldn't rest. Not yet. I needed to understand what we were dealing with. The next few hours were a blur of news reports and emergency broadcasts. The pattern was the same everywhere. The alert would appear, followed by waves of people falling into an unresponsive state. Doctors were baffled. No amount of stimulation could rouse the sleepers. By noon, the first reports of death began trickling in. Not from the sleep itself. The comatose continued breathing, their hearts beating steadily. No. People were dying from forcing themselves to stay awake. Car accidents, machinery mishaps, falls. The human body wasn't meant to fight its basic needs indefinitely. Sarah and I took turns brewing coffee, pinching ourselves, pacing the apartment. We shared stories from our past to stay engaged, played loud music, anything to keep our minds active. But I could see the toll it was taking. Sarah's sentences became disjointed, her movements erratic. The shadows under her eyes grew darker with each passing hour. Around sunset, the power went out. In the sudden silence, we heard screaming from the street. I rushed to the window. Our neighbour, Mrs. Chen, was dragging her unconscious husband towards the car. She saw me watching and screamed for help. I ran outside, my medical training kicking in. Mr. Chen's pulse was steady and his breathing was normal. His eyes moved rapidly behind closed lids, like deep REM sleep. But no matter what I tried, a sternum rub, ammonia inhalants from my work bag, even a hard pinch, nothing produced a response. "He just wanted to rest his eyes for a moment," Mrs. Chen sobbed. "Just for a moment." We helped her to get into the hospital, though we all knew it was futile. The emergency room was chaos. Unconscious bodies filled every available space. The staff moved like zombies, fighting their own exhaustion while treating an endless stream of sleepers, as people had started calling them. My colleague James grabbed my arm as I entered. "John, thank God. We need help. Dr. Rivera succumbed an hour ago." I wanted to stay, to help, but Sarah's grip on my hand tightened. "We need to go," she whispered. "We need to figure this out before we're next." She was right. We gathered supplies from the hospital, caffeine pills, energy drinks, basic medical equipment to monitor our vital signs. The roads were dangerous now, filled with abandoned cars and wandering people in various stages of sleep deprivation. Back home, we barricaded ourselves in and tried to make sense of the situation. The internet was still working, though sporadically. Theories ranged from biological weapons to solar flares to dimensional rifts. But one detail caught my attention. Every sleeper showed the same unusual brainwave patterns. Not quite sleep, not quite consciousness, but something in between. "Look at this," I said, showing Sarah a video from a sleep lab in Germany. The patterns match accounts of people in states of profound meditation. It's like their consciousness is somewhere else. Sarah had been awake for nearly 40 hours now. Her eyes had a glassy, unfocused quality. "I can feel them sometimes," she mumbled. "When I start to drift off, they're trying to tell us something." "Who is?" "The sleepers. They're not gone. They're just waiting for all of us to join them." I checked her pulse, rapid but steady. "Sarah, you're exhausted. We need to—" "No!" She jerked away from me. "You don't understand. I saw it, in those moments before I caught myself drifting. There's something on the other side of sleep. Something vast and hungry and patient." I tried my best to hide my fear. I'd been fighting my own fatigue for so long that reality had taken on a dreamlike quality. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed deeper, more animate. Every blink lasted a fraction too long. All of a sudden, the air was filled with a low, rhythmic humming. Not from any particular direction, but seemingly from everywhere at once. A sound that bypassed the ears and resonated directly in the brain. Sarah pressed her hands against her ears. "Make it stop!" But I couldn't stop hearing it. The humming formed patterns, almost like words, in a language too ancient for human comprehension. My vision blurred. The walls of the apartment seemed to pulse in time with the sound. "Sarah?" I reached for her, but my hand moved in slow motion. She stood rigid, eyes wide, tears streaming down her face. "They're coming through," she whispered. "Every time someone sleeps, the barrier gets weaker. Soon, there won't be enough of us left to maintain it." "Maintain what?" "The wall between worlds, between waking and dreaming. We were never meant to sleep, Jay. It was their way in, all along. Dreams weren't messages or random firing neurons. They were attempts at contact. And now, they finally figured out how to keep us there." The humming grew louder. Sarah's words struck something deep in my memory. Fragments of dreams I'd had throughout my entire life, always forgotten upon waking. Dark shapes moving behind mirrors. Voices calling from impossibly deep wells. The sensation of being watched by something vast and unknowable. My phone buzzed. A new emergency alert. "Remain awake. They must not cross over. Humanity's consciousness is the only barrier." Sarah grabbed my shoulders. "We have to wake them up, all of them. It's the only way to strengthen the barrier." "How? Nothing we've tried works." "Not from this side," she said. Her voice had taken on an odd resonance, harmonizing with the humming. "Someone has to go in after them, a guide to lead them back." I knew what she was suggesting. "Sarah, no. We don't know what's really happening. This could just be hallucinations from sleep deprivation." She smiled sadly. "You're the doctor, John. You need to stay here, monitor my vital signs. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, use the epinephrine in your bag. And whatever you do, don't follow me in." Before I could stop her, she lay down on the couch and closed her eyes. Her breathing immediately slowed, matching the rhythm of the humming. I connected her to the portable heart monitor that we'd taken from the hospital. Her vitals remained steady, but her brain activity spiked off the charts. The minutes crawled by like hours. The humming grew so loud, it made my teeth ache. Shadows crept across the walls like living things, reaching towards Sarah's still form. I pinched my arms, slapped my face, anything to stay alert. At exactly 9 minutes and 30 seconds, Sarah's eyes snapped open. But they weren't her eyes anymore. The pupils had expanded to fill the entire socket, revealing depths that seemed to go on forever. When she spoke, her voice echoed as if from a great distance. "They're beautiful, Jay. So beautiful. And they've been so lonely." I reached for the epinephrine, but my movements were sluggish. The shadows had become three-dimensional, peeling away from the walls like dark petals opening. Sarah sat up, but her movement was wrong. Too fluid, too symmetrical. As if she was being puppeteered by something that had only ever seen humans in photographs. "Don't fight it," she said, reaching for me with hands that seemed to elongate with each passing second. "They just want to show us what we've been missing. what we've been protecting ourselves from all these years. The humming had become a song now, beautiful and terrible. My eyelids felt like they were made of lead. In my last moments of consciousness, I saw Sarah's face begin to shift and change, revealing something else beneath the surface. Something that had always been there, waiting to emerge. I wish I could say I kept fighting, that I found some hidden reserve of strength and stayed awake long enough to save everyone. But the truth is, I was so tired. So very, very tired. As my eyes finally closed, I caught a glimpse of what Sarah meant. Behind the veil of sleep, vast geometries expanded in impossible directions. Ancient beings of pure thought and dreams reached out with appendages of conceptual matter. They'd been waiting so long, watching us through the thin membrane of consciousness, sending us fragments of their reality through our dreams. And now, at last, we were awake enough to join them. I hear the emergency alert is still playing, somewhere in the waking world. A warning for the few humans still fighting to stay conscious. But they'll join us soon enough. After all, everyone has to sleep eventually. And when you do, we'll be waiting. Just don't close your eyes. Not unless you're ready to finally wake up. For more terrifying creepypasta horror stories, check out the playlist or the video on screen.